Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and a year ago I made a video with books on my shelves that would set to self-destruct on November 1st. November 1st has come and it is time to see how I did. Also, let's make a new list. Let's see what books will self-destruct in November of 2024. So I went through my shelves and I picked 10 books that if I do not read them in the next 12 months, they will self-destruct. And I will have to unhaul them. So we're going to go through that. But before we go through the new 10 books that are going to self-destruct, I have the ones that I did not read here. Pretty much all the ones that I did read, I've already unhauled. I can't think of any ones that I've kept. But to be honest, I didn't read very many of them to begin with. So out of the 10 books that were on that original list, I only read 3. I unhauled one unread because I did try a chapter and really knew after the first chapter that it wasn't for me. And I have 6 left. Now, of that 6, 2 of them I have bookmarks in, and I do plan on finishing them before the end of the year. So since I've started them, I'm going to keep them and I am going to finish them. The 2 of those are I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney and Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. Like I said, I have bookmarks in both of these. I will be finishing them before the end of the year. So I am going to keep these because I've already started them. So that leaves me with 4 books that I am just going to unhaul. And they are The Curse of Fog Island, Unremembered, Amber and Dusk, and The Time Traveler's Wife. So these 4 books will be self-destructing unless you think I should keep them. If you fight for them in the comments, maybe I'll change my mind. But like I said, I am pretty secure in that decision. But let's jump into the 10 books that are on the list for this year that I need to read or I have to unhaul them at the end of the year. I'm not going to go into what these books are about. I'm just going to kind of go into my reasoning of why they're on this list. The first book is The Gypsy King by Maureen Fergus. This is a book that I ended up getting in a little free library early last year, I think, and it's just been sitting on my shelf. And to be honest, every time I look at it, I have no striving to pick it up. Nothing is motivating me. I'm not super excited to read it, and I can't really put my finger on why. I'm just not. So this has to go on this list because I do really either want to get it off my shelves or finally force myself to read this book. The next book is Grown Up by Marian Keyes. This book is on here because I don't really read a lot of women's fiction. I picked it up because a lot of people that I knew were talking about it on BookTube when I first kind of joined BookTube. This was a book that was kind of making its rounds. And that was before I really knew I did not particularly love this genre. I do read some women's fiction, but it's very sparse and not very often. So this is going on that list because either I'm going to read it this year or I'm not, and that probably is a sign that I'm never going to read it. Plus, it is quite a chunky book, so I'm sure that is also keeping me from picking it up. The next book on this list is Karen Slaughter's The Last Widow. I have a couple of Karen Slaughters on my shelves, and I need to decide if I'm actually interested in reading them. I've read one Karen Slaughter, and it was good. It was fine. But I'm not really sure if Karen Slaughter is the thriller writer for me, and I do want to give them another shot though, because I did not dislike the book that I read. I just don't know if Karen Slaughter is a writer for me, and I'm still trying to decide that. It could go either way. I'm right on that bubble where do I like it or do I not, and I'm not 100% sure from the one book I read. I might really like it or I might not. I need to decide, and this is a good way to find out. I also have here The Seven Sisters by Lucinda Riley. This book is a start to a fairly large historical fiction series that follows 7 sisters. Each book follows a different sister, and they get chunkier and chunkier as they go along, which is probably why I've been hesitant to start this series, because the first one is large. Later in the series, they're ridiculous. They're like 800 pages. And I just don't know if that's something I even want to start and go down the road for. Obviously, at one point I was interested or I would not have picked up the first book. But every time I think of starting it, I just feel overwhelmed and I don't. So I need to read the first book and see if it's something that I am interested in taking on this undertaking of a fairly large series. You may wonder why this book is on here, and that is The Diviners by Liv Bray. It is a well-loved series on BookTube, but that is actually because the first book is well-loved, but I have heard not the best things about the rest of the series. I got the first book. I absolutely love this edition. It's beautiful, but I am nervous to start a series that most people do not like how it ended. I actually think I'm going to love the first book, so I need to decide if I'm going to read it and treat it as a standalone, or if I'm going to continue down the series and just hope maybe I'm in the minority of who likes it and who doesn't. I have to decide, which is why this is going on this list. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager is the last Riley Sager that I currently own. Riley Sager and I just have not vibed. I have not really enjoyed any Riley Sagers I've read. The highest rating I've ever given is a 3-star, and everything else is lower or a DNF. I know a lot of people love Riley Sager, but for me, it's the writing style that just does not work for me, and the way characters are written doesn't work for me. However, I know Home Before Dark is kind of considered one of his better books, and I do own it, so should I read it before I unhaul it? Or should I just unhaul it because Riley Sager doesn't work for me? Honestly, I would kind of love your opinions on this one because I don't really know what to do. This next book is somewhat similar to the reasoning behind The Gypsy King, and that is that it's just been on my shelves for a very long time, and for one reason or another, I have never picked it up. It's worked for prompts for readathons, and I've still avoided it, so I don't know why I don't want to read this, but I've been kind of avoiding it this entire time, so hopefully this makes me finally read it. Obviously, this is Crimson Lake by Candace Fox. This is the start of a trilogy that is a thriller trilogy, and that's really all I know about it. Maybe that's why I'm not interested, is I need to kind of like reread the synopsis and remind myself why I wanted to read this in the first place. Maybe. I'm also going to just talk about this one at the same time because it's the same reasoning. I just keep avoiding this book, and I don't know why. It's Reconstructing Amelia. It is a thriller, and I do not know why I have not picked it up. I've heard really great things about it, so like I have no excuse, but I just keep avoiding it on my shelf, so hopefully putting it on this list will kind of spur me to read it. Little Fires Everywhere is going on this list because it is my lowest rated book on Goodreads, and that kind of makes me feel like I'm not going to love it just because clearly a lot of people don't. I haven't actually heard many thoughts about this book, but I do know it's my lowest rated, and that has kind of kept me from picking it up. So I need to either read it or get rid of it. And the last book on this list is Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris. I have heard mostly negative reviews about this book. I actually had it on a TBR earlier in the year for the Battle of the Boy Bands, and avoided it because when I put it on the TBR, most of the comments were negative about this book. So I don't have high hopes going into it, so I'm just avoiding it. Should I give it a try? Because I do try to read books and not necessarily go off just reviews, because there have been books that people have not liked that I have enjoyed. Everybody's different. There's a book for every person. I'm hesitant to just unhaul it without trying, but also I haven't heard the best reviews. So those are 10 books that will be self-destructing at the end of the year, and also a little review on how I did with last year's books. Please let me know if you have any thoughts about any of these books that might help me make a decision of whether I should definitely try to get them done through the year or if I should just not try. Because honestly, as much as it is easy to read these 10 books in a year, as we saw from last year, I did not do the best job of it. But I would really appreciate opinions and kind of thoughts on the books that I've chosen, just to kind of help me know which ones I should definitely prioritize. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help my channel grow, and I'll see you next time. Bye.